Hey guys, welcome to the Elevated Mission channel. This is the Ruggles Round Up, and we just wrapped up the wild card playoff games this last weekend, this wild card weekend, and now we're getting into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I'm excited, Ian. Great to see you, man. What's on your mind about these divisional round playoff games?
Yeah, I think we're getting some really good matchups and we're seeing some guys really come into their own. I mean, we got a lot of young quarterbacks that are, they're
Yeah,
finally in their prime and they're in their they're in their Super Bowl window. I feel like now. They were really young. It was only Patrick Mahomes that was in his Super Bowl window, but now I feel like, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Josh Allen, which one of those two are going to be knocked off by each other in this next round.
right.
You got Jared Goff, who's playing some of his best football right now, has went into the Super Bowl before. You got young quarterbacks that are in there coming up into that window with like C.J. Stroud, and then the rookie Jaden Daniels, and then you got the old head versus the guy that I'm not necessarily 100% sure on about if he can be like the Super Bowl winning quarterback in Matthew Stafford and Jalen Hurts. So I'm excited about how this division round gonna go, but some really good teams that are going to be facing off with each other.
Yeah, it's funny. All last weekend, I felt like all I heard about was all these great quarterbacks. Who's the next great quarterback and everything? And you got Patrick Mahomes just sitting back, waiting for everybody to come to him. Of course, the Chiefs and the Lions. The Super Bowl runs through Detroit. It runs through Kansas City because they've got the number one seed. So they got to have the weekend off. But as we saw in the college football playoffs, that's not necessarily an advantage all the time. Sometimes it is. You can go get right. You can fix some injury issues. Guys can, maybe it's been a long season. They can relax. But sometimes that week layoff that does you no favors. We saw every single one of the teams with a bye in the college football playoffs. They all lost.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. So we'll start off with the number one seeds, as those are the teams that are going to be getting their games going on Saturday. And so we'll start with talking about that Chiefs Texans game. I think it's a fun matchup. I love what Texas did this offseason, getting a lot of great talent. Now, some of that talent ended up injured with Stephon Diggs being knocked out, but watching Nico Collins really come into his own these last two seasons, I feel like he's now put himself into that conversation of, is he one of the top five wide receivers in the NFL right now? He, since college, put on a little bit of speed, as he was always a big body catch, contested catch artist, but put on that little bit of extra speed there, and now he's become a true blue number one wide receiver. You add Joe Mixon into the mix, and then on the other side, you add in Daniil Hunter to play off the other side of Will Anderson. That's a great 1-2 punch there. They got Derek Stingley, who's starting to prove himself as a guy that is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I love the way this team is built, and I think in particular, as a full team, I think is a more talented squad. But in the parts that we talk about that matters in winning, the Chiefs definitely have them beat when we talk about what we think is the most impactful things for a team, and that's the coach and that's the quarterback.
Yeah, and I tell you what, yeah, they've got experience, they've got the swagger. They're trying to three-peat to be the first team to ever three-peat in the Super Bowl era. So we'll see if they can do that. Here's the thing, the Texans, I sold them short last week. I thought the Chargers were actually going to get the win. The Texans all season long, they were Jekyll and Hyde. They just didn't look like that team that was poised and ready to make a run in the playoffs. And I did think that the San Diego Chargers, or it's not San Diego Chargers anymore, LA Chargers, I'm an old head. What can I tell you? But I thought that they had the better ramp up to the playoffs, but no, they had a great scheme. They were ready for the playoffs. Second year there now in a row. CJ Stroud was, the Daniels of last year, and then now he, early on looked rough, but then settled into the game and then played really well. So I think the Texans can give the Chiefs a game. I don't expect them to beat them, but I do think the Texans can give the Chiefs some trouble. I doubt that the Chiefs go down in the divisional round on their quest for a three-peat, but crazier things have happened.
Absolutely. It's an interesting one to see, as I do think it's we did actually see this matchup late in the season. This was one of the last few games that we got to see the full Chiefs squad go out there and play, and they ended up beating them 2019. So not a dominant victory by the Chiefs, and I think the Texans are going to be able to play better in this upcoming game. I think it's all going to come down to if they can get Joe Mixon running the football. Because when Joe Mixon is at that 75 plus yards rushing, it puts such a strain on those linebackers. And then CJ Stroud playing off that play action, being able to find those gaps within the passing scheme, that's going to be where it becomes very, very important for them, being able to dominate in that side of the thing. And then I think on the flip side, it's about forcing it to all be on Patrick Mahomes. You can't let a run game happen. You can't let Patrick Mahomes get outside the pocket on you. You want him to be having to throw in tight windows and trying to drive down the field through him methodically passing down the field. Not that that's a good way to stop them, but that's probably your best chance at being able to stop them, is making them one-dimensional, and it's Patrick Mahomes being just a pocket passer.
Yeah, I think that the Texans' best shot, like you mentioned, this last week, it felt like Joe Mixon was running downhill for the first time in a while. And so that bodes really well for the Texans to be able to keep this tight. The Kansas City Chiefs have been winning close games all year. And so you kind of wonder, when is that going to bite them? Yeah, they lost a blowout in the end of the season, but they didn't have any of their guys in the game. So I don't really even count that much as far as a win or a loss. So they really though during the bulk of the season they won all their games. They didn't they kept it close though. They weren't able to blow teams away. They weren't that dominant force that maybe we've seen in the past. And so, they win in a different way. They're savvy, they're veterans, they're coach led, they're all those things. And you just never count. It's like in the heyday of Tom Brady, right? Like it doesn't matter what the stats are. It doesn't matter what that is. We just know that guy wins football games, and so that's what we expect out of Patrick Mahomes. But if Joe Mixon can be running downhill, I think the Texans got a puncher's chance, in this thing. And I'll tell you what, this may be the year of the running back. It's kind of like we used to say, that the wide receiver was kind of window dressing, and that the in the meat of this thing was really running backs. And then it flipped. It started saying the meat was the wide receivers. This year's playoffs, I'll tell you what, Derrick Henry had me believing, flipping over to the other AFC divisional round game. Derrick Henry had me believing maybe, I'll tell you what, the cake is the running back because he looked good out.
Well, I mean, that's the truth between both of the Ravens as well as the Eagles. Adding a running back has opened up the pass game as well. You've watched it just let these wide receivers run wide open over the middle because linebackers can't drop back. And so they are creating a lot of one-on-one matchups. They need to fill the box to be able to stop the run game. But then when you have an elite quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, that's where it gets so tough to cover. It's definitely going to be interesting to watch. Love the running backs in this year's playoffs, and even Kareem Hunt's been playing good for the Chiefs, and I think he'll be a tough stop for them. But speaking of running backs and how they open up the game, I think no team does it better than the Detroit Lions. The
Yeah.
Detroit Lions playing off of their run game is one of the things that makes them such a dynamic squad. I don't think there is a better quarterback in the NFL that's better out of play action than Jared Goff. And with Jahmyr Gibbs playing some of his best football at the back half of this season, where Montgomery got knocked out, we got to see him get a full workload. And man, did he look special. I mean, we expected it, but I mean, it was very impressive stuff. And I think we're going to see a lot of that against that Commanders defense. They're going to control the time clock down. They're going to beat you up with that just ginormous, just offensive line. Because that's how they built this offensive line and defensive line, is building with ginormous human beings that are going to beat you up down the stretch. And I think it's going to be too much for the Commanders to handle. They just have done that to a lot of really good teams.
Yeah, but I'll be surprised if it's a blowout. Commanders have played good football. They're a tough team, And the moment doesn't seem to be ever too big for this rookie quarterback. I mean, he's really playing well. And I'm excited to see what his future is, but I don't think his future is this weekend. I think that this is the Lions' time. They're getting back to that NFC Championship game. They had the first half won last year in that NFC Championship game, and then it kind of slipped away from them in the second half. Well, I expect them to try to get to that elusive Super Bowl that the Detroit franchise has never been able to get to in its history. And so they've got something to play for. They're hungry. They might have had a week off, but they're ready to go. That week off, well, it got them David Montgomery back. Yeah, we can talk about how special Gibbs is, but it's nice to have two first string running backs ready to go. And, if either one of them goes down, the other one can carry and tote the load. And so, yeah, that's a special team. They got a lot of weapons all over the field. You got it at tight end, you got it at wide receiver, you got a lid lifter out there. But you got that running game that I just don't know. I said it earlier, but I think this is the year of the running back. You got to be strong in that running back to win in 2020. Well, now five, and it's going to be an interesting playoffs and Super Bowl. I think that all these teams have some really nice running backs, and just they like to lean on that running game a lot. So but the Lions, what has been their mode of operation since they had all their injuries on the defensive side is they got to outscore you because they're going to give up some points. They're going to take some risks. Aaron Glenn's done a nice job with scheming up that defense to make sure that they can stay competitive and they can do some things, and not just let the offense dictate to them. And they've gotten guys off the street that have come in and produced and worked hard. So great job for Aaron on just what he's been able to do with that defense. And I look for them to having 2 weeks to get ready for this game, to scheme some stuff up, and try to do some things special on the defensive side of the ball and get past this division round.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're talking about the two teams that ended up getting the bye are probably the two worst teams for you to give the bye to if you're the opponent because there's the most creative play designers in the NFL currently, with Ben Johnson being the main play designer for the Detroit Lions, and then obviously Andy Reid, who's been doing it for years,
Legend.
bringing in some of his best play calls when it comes to playoff time. And so I think it's going to be a really, really fun watches in those Saturday matchups with Texans, Chiefs, and then Commanders, Lions, obviously, as we talk about them. I think Commanders, what they're going to need from this is going to be a just high level performance from Jaden Daniels. I think that is where you're going to win this game. You watched the Commanders be able to beat the Eagles, which I think is a very similar built team to the Detroit Lions, by him just putting the team on his back, having a 250-yard passing game, 5 touchdowns, and then 81 yards on the ground on just 9 carries. That's some really impressive stats, and you're going to have to play some hero ball to be able to beat this Detroit Lions team. And I think that's going to have to come off of the back of who's going to have to don the cape. It's going to have to be Jaden Daniels.
Well, I think those stats you just read, that is very Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP Lamar Jackson type stats. And but he's got that in him. And like I mentioned earlier, just because he's a rookie, don't sell this kid short. He's a gamer. He will not shy away from performance
An old
in this
rookie
game.
too, though.
Yeah, yeah.
You say he's a rookie, but he's a guy who has played a lot of football in college. He's not just a guy that came out and had one good year in college and then is a 21-year-old out there. This guy has played enough football in his day that he's a little bit more refined than your average rookie quarterback, in my opinion. Started at Arizona State and then got experience starting with LSU. A guy who started for 2 different teams in college under 2 different systems. Generally is more developed and ready for the NFL game than a guy who just had his stardom with one team for 2 seasons and then went straight to the NFL kind of deal. So I do like him a lot, and I think he is, like you said, a little bit more refined, a little bit more dangerous than your average rookie quarterback.
We've seen that both with Bo Nix and with Daniels this year. Both of rookies that have played in 2 different college systems, played a lot of games. I mean, I think Bo Nix is 87 years old, but he's played a lot of football games, and and they come in. they're a more developed product at the NFL level already, right? So two made the playoffs.
All right, let's move to the Sunday matchups, as those ones are when it starts to get real tight, and I'm not actually as confident, because I'm very confident in the Chiefs, I'm very confident in the Lions, even though I think they probably will end up being close games. I do think those teams will end up squeaking it out. I'm question marks across these other games. Rams,
Yeah,
Eagles, Ravens, Bills. Let's start off with those LA Rams and Philadelphia Eagles.
I'll tell you what, these Rams are playing good football right now. They weren't healthy. It's always in the last few years we talk about the Rams, we're talking about, the health of the players because when healthy, they're as good as anybody. And if Matthew Stafford can sit in the pocket and pick you apart, he's as good as anybody has ever been at the position. So they are dangerous. And so, I mean, Jalen Hurts did not play well in the wild card round, but the team is good. You got Saquon Barkley. That is hard to beat when you got an old line that can open up holes. And man, that defense for the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, it's chocked full of talent. I mean, so much talent on the field when that defense takes the field. But you got a young pass rush over in the LA Rams. And I'll tell you what, they are coming after quarterbacks right now and they're going to give Jalen Hurts some pressure. You can almost guarantee it. I know the Eagles' offensive line is a good offensive line, but they get to the football. And so I expect them to do the same, in this matchup as well. And I'll tell you what, Rams, dangerous, dangerous team.
I mean, we talked about it. What affects winning the most? Coach and quarterback, and I think the Rams take it in both of those categories. It's just that the Philadelphia Eagles are so dang talented in every other category. I mean, they are just stacked with all-pro players, the best in their positions at all over the place. I mean, Saquon Barkley should be getting even more MVP nods than he is already because it's obviously going to go to a quarterback. But what he has done to this Philadelphia Eagles offense, the things he's opened
Unbelievable.
up for them has been so impressive. And I think they're a tough stop, especially because they're your classic. They're the teams that you grew up watching and even before you of just we're going to pound it down your throat. We are going to hold on to the football for 8-minute drives down the field, and then our defense is going to come out there and smack your offense right in the face with big guys in the middle. We got some of the best linebackers in the game, and you also got a revitalized DB core with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean that have really aided in the progression of this defense becoming even more dangerous. So that is always a tough combo to stop, along with a very talented leader at the quarterback spot in Jalen Hurts. He's not necessarily the most talented quarterback, but man, is he a
He's a
good
leader.
leader. And I think that's just a tough stop for the Rams as they just do everything so well and they do everything to not lose games, which I think is going to be something where you could maybe see Matthew Stafford throw an interception or two. You may see Kyron Williams have a fumble, and I just don't see those same mistakes happening for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think most pundits coming into the playoffs would have said, yep, this is the Eagles got this matchup, right? But then you watch them against the Vikings last week, a good Vikings team. I know they dropped two late that were lopsided victories. Those were two really good football teams that they lost those two. The Rams are playing good football. It's like, man, what do I do here? I was feeling the Eagles, but now the Rams sure do look pretty in that dress. They got the nice high heels on.
That defensive line, I couldn't scream enough praises for.
Man, down
Jared Verse is a man amongst boys. I thought when he came into the NFL that he was just going to be a guy that had a bull rush, and that was about it in his arsenal. Well, it turns out, yeah, he has a bull rush, and it might be the best bull rush in the NFL as a rookie. And he has just been able to just cause so much havoc in the backfield. He opens up things for his young D tackles like Brandon Fisk as well as others that have just been able to constantly, with stunting different motions, putting themselves into good situations to get one-on-one pressures, one-on-one matchups with offensive linemen. And it's just so hard for those offensive linemen to be able to block those guys without without a double team helping out. And it's been really impressive to watch what they've done with that front four for the Rams. And if they can consistently get pressure on Jalen Hurts, not letting him get the ball to his playmakers and Devonta Smith as well as A.J. Brown, and force it to be just a Saquon Barkley show, I think that the Rams have a really good shot at a victory there.
That's the tough. That's a difficult proposition though. So, we'll make our predictions here at the end. I'm still debating which way I'm going on that matchup. But we got a nice matchup on the other side in the AFC as well. You've got the Bills and the Ravens. I mean, I think this is an exciting matchup. Top tier quarterbacks. We've got some great, running games here. We got some really cool stuff. Both of them, one of the best parts of their running game is their quarterback.
Absolutely. I mean, this would have been a fun Super Bowl matchup if they were on different divisions. I mean, they are so talented, and it's just a really tough ask to say which one is going to take this one out. You have the probable MVP on one side with, well, you have the two probable
Yeah, two. Yeah,
MVPs.
right.
It's the MVP of the NFL will be playing in this game, whether it's Josh
That's what it
Allen
appears.
or
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson. The MVP will be playing in this matchup in the Buffalo Bills and Ravens, and it's going to be so interesting to watch. Derrick Henry, though, has been able to open up a thing in this offense that I think is just so hard to stop. We've watched Lamar Jackson shrink in the big moments when he has to play hero ball. I just don't think he has to play hero ball anymore. I don't think the Buffalo Bills have enough to make him play hero ball. I don't know if any team in the NFL has enough to make him play hero ball, because he's got the best running back, the best power runner in the NFL with Derrick Henry, and probably the best fourth quarter running back in the entire NFL, because he just beats you up quarter after quarter, and by the fourth quarter you're like, man, I've had enough of this. Let's try a weak arm tackle, and he just stiff arms you into the ground. I mean, did you watch that clip of him and what was it, Mika Fitzpatrick, that he just shoved into the ground with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and just a dominant offensive player that then you have to bring in so many guys to try and tackle him, and then it's just so tough to be able to stop then Lamar Jackson as a passer. I just see it as a tough matchup for the Buffalo Bills to be able to stop that offense that is just so dynamic. But without Zay Flowers, their number one wide receiver threat, does that change things in the pass game? I think that's what you got to see out of the Buffalo Bills. If they want to win, it's going to come down to, can they stop those wide receivers and make it into Lamar Jackson, and we're watching a T-style offense where it's just run play, and we don't see much passing all game.
They still might win with that, though. I mean, there
Yeah.
is the chance they still could win. I don't know if you saw this in one of the touchdowns that the Ravens got during the wild card game, that where they're running the read option and Derrick Henry clamps down on that football, and you can tell Lamar's trying to pull it. And he's trying to pull it to take it, and Derek's like, no, that's my football. And Derek runs for a touchdown. Now, when you watch the play, Lamar would have ran for a touchdown too on that same play, but Derek was like, "No, this is my touchdown right here," and he just clammed down on that thing. And I expect Derrick Henry in this game, if needed, is going to take that attitude in this game and say, "Just give me the ball, and I will take this to the promised land." Yeah, they're a tough. They're a tough team. You got a veteran coach that knows what he's doing. He's won a Super Bowl before. You got a talented quarterback that maybe finally gets over the hump, in, this season. He wants to prove I'm not just a two-time MVP. I'm a Super Bowl winning quarterback as well. And you got that added touch of Derrick Henry. So I don't know. They're going to be pretty tough. But
I mean,
you
we
got
watched one.
Superman himself over on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, that is the case, because it's so tough. It's so tough. But the Ravens have won the tough games. That's what I've been so impressive for. The games that they lost, it was an early loss to the Chiefs and then an early loss to the Raiders. Were two of those losses that they had, and then they went out there and they beat the Buffalo Bills 35-10. They beat the Bengals twice this season. They beat the Buccaneers. They beat the Commanders. They've beaten a lot of playoff teams this year. They lost to the Steelers at the very end right there. But I mean, this is a team that has won a lot of its matchups against the top tier playoff teams, as well as the tough matchups, which I think, the Bengals, end of the season Bengals, were a very different team than beginning of the season Bengals. They got the win
Yeah.
against that Bengals team in November. And so they have been able to win their tough games. But then you go and look at the other side, and so have the Buffalo Bills have been able to win their tough games. I mean, I still remember them being able to put the first losing mark in the Chiefs losing column because they were
Yeah,
able
the
to
perfect
win.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, 30-21 in that game. And you think about that matchup because that was just such an impressive performance by Josh Allen. Can he go and have another superhero, Superman level performance where he just takes over offensively, and then they always have a good defense. That Bills defense is going to be tough, and I think they're going to be able to limit down that offense enough to be able to say, okay, Josh Allen, all you got to do is go out there and be Superman for us as you've been being
That's
Superman
it.
all season
That's all
long.
you got to do.
That's
Just be
all.
Superman. Yeah, that's all we need. But you know what? He's done it time and time again. I mean, both for number one seeds in these playoffs, they got the win down the stretch in the regular season. So I mean, it was a shootout for the ages against the Lions. But yeah, that is an impressive team. Again, I think we're both leaning, with the one seeds on Saturday. The Chiefs and the Lions. These are tough picks, though. So now that we've discussed it all, where you go? The Ravens and the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, starting off with the Ravens Buffalo Bills. Well, I just love both teams. I think they're both so talented. I think they're playing really, really good football. I'm going to come down to the coach that has won a Super Bowl before, and that is John Harbaugh. I got to go with the Ravens. I think John Harbaugh is a guy that knows how to get a team to the promised land and win tough matchups. And so I got to lean Ravens in this game, even though they might lack the receiving talent to be able to put pressure on with a pass attack. I think their run attack is just too strong to be able to stop.
Well, I mean, Josh Allen's over on the other side going, not so fast, Ian. I am Superman, and I'm going to take this one home. And so the Buffalo Bills get over the Ravens and have to face the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Neither one of these teams, that is going to be a heck of an AFC Championship game. Let's flip back over to the NFC. This is a tough one as well. We got the Rams in the Eagles.
Okay, Rams Eagles. You know what? Because I think we both are leaning the same way on this one. I'm gonna take the Eagles on this one because I think you want the Rams because I know how much of a
Kind
Matthew
of excited.
you're
Yeah.
a Matthew Stafford guy through and through, and so I love Jalen Hurts in there, the talent that is there, and you know what they say, the classic statement: defense wins championships. And I think the Eagles have the more talented defense that are going to be able to limit down what Matthew Stafford can do, and that really good receiving core of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua.
Yeah, well, this is an AJ special right here. He's an Eagles fan, and he's not a fan of Matthew Stafford. So I'm going Rams with this one. As he's heading out to California, where he should be, loving the Rams. As he's heading out there to California National Guard. So that's a little shout out for you, AJ. That we're going to get the Rams into the NFC Championship game again. Either one of these teams, Eagles or Rams, against the Lions in the NFC Championship game, that's a game that I'm going to be pretty excited about if we get those matchups. So, I mean, the Lions still have to get over the Commanders, and those Chiefs still have to get over those Texans. So, and I give both those teams a puncher's chance because
Where's the
this is why we have the NFC champ. I mean,
If
this
there
is why we
is
have the
an
playoffs.
upset out of those two matchups, we're both leaning Chiefs and Lions. Where do you see the upset coming from? Is it the Texans or is it the Commanders that you think that can wow us?
I hate to ever bet against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, So I hate to even say this, but I think the Commanders are the more likely upset because of the Detroit's depleted defense as well. And so that's where I see the upset is more likely, but I don't predict that to happen.
All right. Well, I love it. I'm excited for this week's playoffs. So much talent out there and so many questions still on the board. I'm going to be excited to check in next week with you to get our reactions on what is going to come from this crazy week of NFL action.